All right, so welcome everyone. I think everyone knows me. If you don't, my name is Sunita Krishnamurthy and I lead Navgati. I've been a coach for a long time and a coach trainer for almost as long a time. And I thought of putting this session together because I'm finding that there are a lot of coaches, people whom I know to be personally highly skilled, who somehow seem to develop this cold feet when it comes to the certification process. I don't know whether it's a hangover of exams from the past or a lack of understanding of what really is required. So it seems like this exam is becoming scarier than it is meant to be. And as a result, a lot of very good coaches who deserve to be certified are not getting certified. Yeah. So the objective today is to help you all see that it is not difficult and hopefully get all 28 of you or 27 of you to move into getting your applying for your exam. Yeah. So before we start, could I have you all just put in chat just for me to get a broad sense of it? Where are you in terms of your journey, which is still in training, collecting coaching hours, everything done, just procrastinating? So just put it in chat so I get a sense of where everyone is. Right, Hanuj. I like Anita's pure in capitals. Okay, so lots of people in collecting hours, waiting for the perfect session. Okay, more than 100 hours, Ruchi. All right, Sumit is almost there. Super. Okay, so it will be very gratifying for me if all of you all move into finishing your exam and submitting your stuff after this. So before we get into it, I just wanted to quickly recap. All of you all seem aware of it, but just in case there's any questions around it, around the overall process. So taking a step back before we get to the evaluation. So you're here because you're either in this space that you've completed a level one training. So we started offering level one programs from I think 2022 onwards. So if you've done training with us or with some other organization post that, you're likely to have got a level one certificate. If you don't know, write to Sita and ask what is my course. Yeah. And as part of that, you would have finished the 60 hours of training, which is 8 days of training, as well as 10 hours of mentor coaching. If you are on this path, then you need to now submit one recording, which is between 20 to 60 minutes of length, along with a transcript, either to us or whoever is your level one certifying organization. And once you clear that evaluation, we will issue you a level one certificate. And you then apply to the ICF along with the 100-hour log. You may not need to submit it necessarily, but you need to have it in place by then, and then take the ACC exam, which is a multiple choice exam. Yeah? Or you could have finished ACSTH. Sorry, whoever that is, could you mute, please? Uh, or you could have completed an ACSTH program, which is prior to 2022. In which case you will need to, there are two paths that you can do, which is one, you can get 10 hours of mentor coaching from an ICF certified coach. The asterisk over here is that that coach needs to either be PCC certified or have renewed their ACC credential at least once. Yeah, but you can get it from any coach. And then you submit a recording, the same duration, the same requirements with the transcript, etc., directly to the ICF along with your log. And if you clear their evaluation, you take the ACC exam. Yeah. Or what you can do is that you can get the 10 hours of mentor coaching from a level one organization, such as Navgati, submit one recording to us, and if you clear the evaluation, apply to the ICF with your log. Yeah. And in all three cases, once you're done, you go celebrate. The only thing is that if you are transferring your ACSTH program into a level 1 thing, you just have to make sure that you meet the transfer of credit rules. So if you have done your ACSTH program with us, and if you've done mentor coaching with us, then we will anyway accept you into the level 1 route. Just write to me or write to Sita and do a check on that. Yeah. I'm just going to pause here and see if anyone has any questions on this. Raise your hand if you have questions.
No, it's clear. It's clear. It's clear.
Okay. Thanks, Pati. Anita?
So one question on the 10 mentor coaching hours. You, from time to time, you keep telling us there's time now. You can sign up for mentor coaching hours. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So you have that, what, like every 3 months? Or
Every
like
3
how
months.
often?
Every 3 months. So the way Navgati offers mentor coaching is that we do 7 of the 10 hours as group coaching, which is 2 or 3 2.5 hour sessions, and 3 one-on-one sessions. So you get a little more than 10 hours credit. So you sign up for the group coaching. It's offered every 3 months, and then you talk to Piyush and you schedule the one-on-one sessions.
And your next one is going to be when?
I will have to check. I think Piyush had put something on the group recently.
Okay, I'll look.
Yeah.
So, Sunita, just one point. Yeah. So I'm into that last pillar where actually one-to-one session with Piyush is remaining, because in fact, it's a fun, interesting coincidence. Day before yesterday, I wrote to Piyush because suddenly I realized I should get the certificate type of thing. So in that case, I need to submit the recording and write to Sita just to clarify anything, or
Yeah. So you send the recording to Sita along with the transcript and write to her, because if you haven't done the level 1, then there's a payment, there's a fee for the.
Yeah, so that is what I just wanted to understand.
So Sita can help you with that. Yeah.
Hi, Sunita.
Hey, Hema.
Hi. So is there any validity period for the 60-hour training program that we took?
None. Nothing at all. So I know someone else has this question saying, I've heard that it expires, Anita. Yeah. So there is no, your hours cannot expire. Yeah. So even 20 years from now, if you choose to apply, the ICF will still honor the course that you have done. The only thing will be that for your 100 hours, there's a certain percentage of them that need to meet a recency criteria. I think 20 out of the 100 hours need to be within the last 6 months prior to applying for the certification. But the certificate itself of the training completion will be valid forever.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Sunita, just one question from my end.
Yes,
so these two parts that you're showing, so our certification was complete. The 60 hours was done in August 2021. So which of these parts apply between the two?
So you could do either of these. So you could choose to get mentor coaching outside from anyone you know who's ICF certified, provided they meet these criteria. And you can go ahead and apply directly to the ICF. So the ICF will do the evaluation.
Or via Navgati.
Or you can apply through us and we will do the evaluation, and then you just get the recording from the. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Clear. And I think, Amit and we've already signed up for the mentor coaching with Piyush already.
Okay.
It's just I think some of the individual sessions are, the second part. Got it. Thanks.
Could I take that 100 hours log from my organization, one letter saying that I have done 100 hours to the employees of my organization?
You can.
Okay.
You have to get a letter from the HR person in the organization. That's possible.
Yes. In that letter, all the details of 100 hours are mentioned, or one letter is enough?
No. So normally you get the letter from the organization because you don't want to reveal the names of the people for reasons.
Okay.
So you just need the name of the person, and they have to certify that these many hours were done between this and this period. Ruchi?
Yeah, hi Sunita. So
Hi.
Sunita, 1:1 mentoring, 3:1 mentoring that is left. So for
Mhm.
that, I'll be submitting 3 recording to Piyush and I'll be getting the feedback on it. And then when you say we can submit to Navgati, so can we submit out of those 3 or we submit the 4th recording?
Yeah. So the thing is that you don't necessarily need to submit 3 recordings, Ruchi. You need to do 3 hours of one-on-one mentor coaching. It could be
Okay.
it could be multiple recordings. It could also be bringing in questions that you want to think through in relation to your own coaching, which is why do I struggle with clients like this? Or I'm working with this particular client and I had an issue with it. All of those are valid as for the one-on-one sessions. Yeah. Now, the
Okay.
thing is that in those one-on-one sessions, Piyush will be giving you inputs on helping you strengthen your demonstration of the competencies. Yeah? He is not
Hmm.
going to be telling you this will meet the ICF criteria, go ahead and apply, submit it. Yeah?
Okay.
So based on the
Hmm.
feedback that you get based on your own assessment, you take a call on what you feel is meeting the criteria and send in
Hmm.
that recording to Sita along with the transcript. You
Okay.
get what I'm saying, right? That we need to keep the two different because Piyush is part of the development capacity development team, and we have
Hmm.
another team, separate team, who does the evaluation. Yeah, and that evaluation is independent of the inputs that Piyush has given you.
Hmm.
So you have to take your own. You can do the same submission, but you take a call on whether you feel it is meeting the requirements or not.
Okay. And one follow-up question.
Yeah.
What is the difference between submitting the recording via Navgati and directly to
There
ICF?
is no difference in terms of the standards that it will be evaluated against, or even the cost. It pretty much works out to the same.
Hmm.
The only thing that will be different is the amount of time because the ICF gets so many more submissions from across the world. I think they take 8 to 12
2-3 months.
weeks. Yeah,
2-3 months
2 to
typically.
3 months, right, Ken?
Yeah.
2 to 3 months for sending it back to you. I think our SLA is 3 weeks as of now.
Okay. Okay, got it.
But
Thank you.
you can do it.
Okay.
So good segue into this, which is that whichever path you take, the requirements, the standards against which you will be evaluated remain exactly the same. Yeah. So
Later, there's a question in chat as well. Nupur was inquiring if there's any format available for the letter needed from the org to certify that the coaching was done in time.
Nupur, if you look at the website, or maybe if you just ping me after this, I'll send you the link. The ICF does, I mean, they don't have a format, but they mandate the information that needs to be put into that letter. So you just have to make sure that that is included. Yeah. Thanks, Ken. So the requirements, the standards are the same, which is that you need to do 60 hours training, 10 hours mentor coaching, 1 recording of a coaching session, 100 hours of log, and you need to clear the multiple choice exam. Yeah. So you have a bunch of resources available on the Navgati website. For example, for the ACC exam, you just put up a mock exam that you can take. But today the focus of our session is what your recording is going to be evaluated against. Yeah. So I'm going to be taking you through what the ICF calls the minimum standard requirements for the ACC. This is not a substitute for the competencies in themselves. Yeah, like the 60 hours, you learn about the competencies in a very comprehensive kind of way. So make sure you review those carefully. Look at the ICF website. Go through your material from the program. Today is just helping you understand, sort of demystifying what really evaluation standards are for the recording. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you all through all 8 competencies. Could I ask that you all put down questions that you have on any of the slides, and we'll come to all the questions together because you find that there are overlaps. So sometimes a question you have will get answered later on in the thing. So just write the question down with specifics, and I'll make sure we have time for answering it at the end. Yeah. Okay. So these are the 8 competencies. Don't worry about mugging up and remembering the names and what are the 4 areas they come under. But before we get into them, a couple of things I want you to remember, that the purpose of the evaluation is to confirm that you have the skills and the mindset needed to be a coach. But the ICF sees it more as validation, both for you as well as for your clients. Yeah. So it is not so much prove to us that you can do it at this role as much as it is, see, we told you, you can do it. Yeah. So it is a supportive process. Yeah. If you look at even from the way we give, I mean, I can speak for Navgati, for the way we give feedback, you will receive feedback on what's not working, but you'll also receive plenty of feedback on what's working well for you. Yeah. So it is an affirming process and not like a scary one. Very importantly, you are really not expected to be perfect. Yeah. So there's a very elaborate training for the PCC evaluation, Ken and others who are going to apply for that. That PCC does not stand for Perfect Certified Coach. So most definitely ACC does not stand for that. Yeah? So there is a very clear understanding that even after 100 hours, you are still at the beginning of your coaching journey. So we're looking for evidence that you know what is expected of you, even if there's still room for growth in terms of how you demonstrate it. Yeah. So for example, if you make an attempt to paraphrase what the client is saying and you get it wrong and the client says, no, that's not what I meant, here's what I meant instead. Yeah. You will still receive credit for having made the attempt to paraphrase. Yeah. Because in the process, you are communicating to the client that you're listening, that you're present, that you care about them. Yeah. All of that. So please do not worry about having a picture perfect recording. That's really not necessary. The examiner is going to focus on your demonstration of the behavior, not the client's response. So sometimes I hear people say that the coaching session didn't go well, so I don't think I should submit it. Yeah. Now, if it didn't go well because the client wasn't ready to move, that will not be held against you. Yeah. So if you, for example, ask the client, how are you feeling about this? And they respond with a thinking level answer. Yeah? Or if you attempt to help them challenge a belief and they are not willing to be there, you will still get the credit for your effort. We're not looking at how the client is responding to what you are saying. And lastly, nothing in the ACC manual requires you to use a particular word or phrase. And I don't know, I think there's some general misinformation going the rounds that you have to start by saying, this is a confidential thing and I promise you nothing you say will be held against you in a court of law, blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, that you need to ask a question in a particular way. There's nothing formulaic that is required of you. Yeah? The ICF fully recognizes that there are as many coaching styles as there are coaches. So really looking for your demonstration of the underlying behaviors in whatever way you choose to do those. Okay, so we'll get into the 8 competencies, starting from demonstrates ethical practice, which is not really evaluated too much. Let me put it this way. The absence of this will be held very strongly against you. Yeah. So if in the recording you are doing something which is clearly unethical, yeah, for example, you are getting into a consultant mode, yeah, or you're attempting to sell a service of yours, yeah, or if you're putting the client down, or if they're coming from a particular cultural background, you're talking disparagingly about them. Yeah. So this is a competency that is evaluated more to make sure that there is no overtly unethical practice, because otherwise in a 20-40 minute coaching conversation, there's very little that you can really evaluate. Yeah? What will be evaluated is this, whether you're consistently staying in the role of a coach. Yeah? Which is not going into tell me about your childhood and how your father treated you, that is translating into how you are with your manager today. Yeah. Neither are you going into, let me tell you 5 books that you can read, or here's a framework that you must use. So not staying out of consulting, staying out of therapy. Yeah. And also that you're required to use your coaching skills, which is anyway evaluated in abundance in the rest of the 7 competencies. Yeah. Again, like I was saying, put down any questions that you have and we'll come back to that. The second competency, which is embodies a coaching mindset, which is more around the internal processes of the coach. Are you investing in your own development? Do you have a regular practice of reflection and supervision? Are you paying attention to how your own issues and your own needs are showing up in your coaching? So it's a continuous process of development and mindfulness and self-awareness for coaches, which cannot be assessed in a given, because the ICF has an examiner has no access to what's going on within you. So that it will not be evaluated in the performance evaluation, but there will be questions around your understanding of this competency in the ACC exam. Okay, now we get into, so there are 6 competencies which will be evaluated in great detail in the recording that you submit. So sometimes people say, how long should it be? It cannot be longer than 60 minutes. But I will say that for you to do justice to demonstrating all these behaviors, you should have at least 45 minutes of a conversation. Yeah. Anything less than that, it tends to end up being formulaic and without depth sometimes. So these are the 4 in competency 3, which is the contracting, what we call contracting, what the ICF calls establishes and maintains agreements. I'm just going to get into each of them, each of the 4 behaviors. Yeah. So the first is invite the client to identify the desired coaching outcome, which is something that all of you all have practiced ad nauseum if you've been through the Navgati program, which is asking a question at the beginning of the session, not necessarily at the very beginning, for the client to articulate what is the change they want to bring about in their life. Yeah. Now, typically, a coaching conversation will start with hi, hello, and the coach saying, what would you like to work on today? Yeah. While that is evidence of this, what we would look for is a little more than that, which is once the client has shared something, to really invite them to shift from a problem orientation to a solution orientation. For example, if the client says this, I've been having troubles with my manager, she micromanages me, I'm ending up feeling very stressed and I'm taking it out on my family. Yeah. Any of these would count as a demonstration of this behavior. How would you like to be instead? How would you like to respond differently in this situation? What would a successful change look like? Yeah? And the reason I put another or at the bottom is that there could be a million different ways of asking this question. Yeah? And I repeat again, there's nothing formulaic about it. So once the client has shared the issue that's on their mind, typically a client will share an issue in terms of a problem. So to ask a question after that, to convert it into a goal that they want to work towards is what this behavior is checking. Okay. So that's the first behavior under this competency. The second is reach an agreement on what they want to achieve in this session. Yeah. So if the first question, the first behavior is around where do you want to be in life? This behavior is around in this session, what can happen that can help you move towards that goal. Yeah. And agreeing with the client on that. So if you notice the way the behavior is written, in the earlier one, it was invite the client to identify. Yeah. So it's about you extending that invitation. Over here, it is about reaching an agreement, because we don't want people to get into coaching without having clarified with the client the goal that in the session that you're working towards. Yeah. So for example, questions like, you spoke about this goal. What's the first question on your mind when you think about getting that goal? Yeah. Or what would make you feel that this 1 hour has helped you move towards that goal? Yeah. Or given that goal, what could be a successful outcome from our conversation today? Yeah. Or any other of your favorite way of asking that question. So that distinction between the two behaviors is important to establish. The first one is, what's your overall goal? The second one is asking the question and getting to agreement on, in this 1 hour, what shall we talk through? Yeah. Then there is the third behavior under this, which is being curious about the client and their relationship with this goal, which is essentially not necessarily at the contracting stage, but at any point in the conversation, showing curiosity about how they feel about their goal. Yeah? So questions like, if the client has said, I want to feel a greater sense of belief in myself. Yeah. So what do you mean when you say belief? Or why is this coming up for you at this point in time? Or how would you feel if you're able to accomplish this goal? Yeah. What's coming in the way of you as you think of this goal right now? Any question that shows curiosity around this client and why is this person coming in, or why is this thing coming up for them at this point in time? And finally for this competency, staying with the agenda of the client unless the client indicates otherwise. Yeah. Which means keeping track of the contract. So writing it down is a really good idea. Even if you don't keep detailed notes through the whole conversation, once you've agreed on the contract, you just jot that down so that you don't get caught up in the conversation and end up going off track. Yeah. Making sure you don't ask questions which are irrelevant to the goal, or in a sidetrack that you may be very interested in. All your questions are focused on the goal. Also, if the client is going off track, bringing it up gently with the client to say, hey, we started saying you want to talk about X, but I see that you're now talking about Y. Is that cool with you, or do you want to, should we shift our focus to this? Yeah. Okay, I feel like I think we should pause and see if there are questions. So on this first competency, any questions? All good?
No questions in the chat as well.
I hear sometimes people say, rate the importance of this on a scale of 1 to 10. So that's kind of part of the showing like the relationship with the goal, right? Sometimes, how important is this goal to you? Rate it on 1 to 10, or something like that.
Yeah, you can, but I that's another one of those urban legends that have somehow gotten the thing that you must ask a rating question. So I hear coaches in recording sometimes say, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this goal to you? And the person will say 6, and the coach will say, okay, fine, and carry on with the conversation, which shows like a lack of listening, and that's very formulaic to me. Okay. But if you are asking it to so for example, you ask a question like, where are you right now when it comes to being assertive? And the person says 6. Where would you like to be? And the person says 8. And you ask a question, what would you be doing at 8 that you're not doing at 6? That helps clarify the contract, and that is a good use of a scaling question.
Okay.
But yes, formulaic or not, it would count as evidence for that.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Ken, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I was just going to add in perhaps
Please.
The fact that whatever approach you use to identify the awareness of the client on the particular problem, it needs to suit with the being of the client itself. So if the client is someone who you've noticed is highly analytical, prefers thinking in numbers, then that allows to bring what's below the surface for them up to the surface. They find it easier to talk that way. So in that context, it may make sense, but
sure.
It's not always that a scale is needed here.
Thank you. Okay, if no questions, I'm going to continue to the next competency, which cultivates trust and safety, which is essentially the overall competency is around allowing clients to feel at home so that they can really explore what they may not be comfortable bringing up in other contexts. And the 3 behaviors under it is acknowledge client insights and learnings in the moment. which is simply put, finding ways to give a positive stroke to the client for their reflection, for their self-awareness, for strengths that are becoming evident in the conversation that they may not be seeing. Yeah. So, for example, if a client says something like this, it was a difficult fight with my sister. She said some awful things, but I also wasn't very polite to her when I brought up the issue that started the fight. Okay? To say that something like, I can see you're very willing to acknowledge your contribution to the situation, because it's not easy, right, when in conflict with someone, to say, okay, here's what I did. Or if the client says something like, I had to stand up and say something about how my peer was being treated in the meeting by the senior stakeholder, and I did. And the court says that must have taken courage to support your peer when they were under attack. So it is being said with a tone of support, of empathy. Again, not formulaic. I appreciate you. Like nothing standard about it. The next behavior is exploring the client's expression of all of these feelings, thoughts, concerns, beliefs, or suggestions. It is essentially being interested in what the client is saying. Yeah? You will find this behavior sounds like it is very overlapping with competency 7, which is evoking awareness. What we're looking for over here is that this exploration is really creating trust and safety. You know how when you are with a friend who is really interested in you, you can tell that the person is really interested in you for your sake. That's the kind of tone that we're looking for in this exploration. So, which means that the coach is careful with how they're phrasing their questions and avoiding any sense of judgment. So, let's say a client says, I wasn't able to get to the actions I committed to myself from the last session. And the coach says something like, oh, I'm trying to think of what would be judgmental. How do you expect?
Why weren't you able to do that?
Why weren't you? Why with that tone? Yeah. Why weren't you able to do that? Or how do you expect coaching to work for you
if you're not putting in the work?
So it sounds like a question. It sounds like you're interested in what the person is saying or thinking, but it's clearly taking away from trust and safety. So we're looking for any signs that, not any signs, we're looking for a consistent pattern of judging the client. 4.3, and the way to read it is not that you should express support and concern, but only on that context of the problem and not on them holistically. This is essentially saying that at an ACC level, it is okay if you are expressing support for the client just in the context of their problem and not in the context of them as an individual, which is what is expected of you at a PCC, MCC level and PCC and onwards. Yeah? So for example, I'll show you what both would look like. If a client says this, I've been putting in 12-hour days and to meet this deadline, I'm completely drained. At an ACC level, this would be very acceptable, that sounds really intense. I can hear how demanding this project is for you. What could make the next few days a little easier for you? Okay? So there is empathy, but it is still very much in the context of this problem that the person is presenting right now. Yeah? As opposed to at a more advanced level, something like, that sounds exhausting, but I'm wondering, how are you doing? Not just in terms of the project, but in terms of being a person who needs rest and rejuvenation. What's going on for you? Are you seeing the difference between the two? So it's not saying that you shouldn't do this. What this behavior is saying is that at an ACC level, it is sufficient if you do this. That if you're expressing concern in the context of the problem that the person is sharing. Yeah. I'm going to continue and then we'll pause and see if there are questions, because these competencies are very similar to each other. So maintains presence is that you are fully, the overall competency is that you are fully there in the conversation, not distracted by thoughts of your own competence or what is going on in your life. The first is stay curious throughout the session, as demonstrated through your questions and your listening. So if the client says something and the coach asks something which is very tangential. Yeah. It's clear that you're not present over there because your mind is somewhere else. So a lack of curiosity would be not following through, asking a tangential question, shifting tracks very abruptly. The client is going down a certain path and, a couple of questions over there, and then you suddenly shift with no warning, no segue whatsoever. Or moving into solutioning too quickly, which is having sort of concluded that you know what the problem is and then saying, okay, fine, what should we do about it? Okay. 2 is acknowledging situations that the client presents, which is about empathy, which is when a client says something that is significant for them, not jumping into analysis or action, but calling out what you see happening in a way that shows that you're listening, that is respectful of where the client is. Yeah? So, for example, if a client says this, my manager just told me she's leaving because she heard the project is going to be put on hold. I don't know what it's going to be like without her. Also, what if the project is shelved? I've been working on this project for the last 14 months. I put my life and soul into it. And the coach's response is, that sounds tough. You're thinking of 2 things. 1, the loss of a positive relationship with the manager, and 2, the potential loss of this project that you put so much into. Obviously said with more feeling than me reading that out in a monotone kind of voice. Yeah. So you notice that empathy doesn't always have to be empathizing with feelings. At a PCC level, that is very important. At an ACC level, even empathizing with thinking, which is playing it back in a way that's communicating to the client that you're not in a hurry to fix things, but you're there with them. Yeah, which is why it comes under presence, and you understand them and you are supportive and respectful of them. And finally, under this, allowing the client to direct the conversation, at least some of the time. Again, over here, do not read this as you must direct it only some of the time. It just means that at an ACC level, it's okay if sometimes the coach is taking over the direction, not telling the client what to do. That is clearly not okay. But deciding which path of inquiry, for example, for some part of the conversation may be okay at an ACC level. Okay? How this shows up could be asking the client what they want to work on. So for example, let's say you arrived at a contract and you ask the client saying, okay, where shall we start? Yeah? Is allowing the client to decide pick where to move from. Or if they have multiple things they have said, asking them which of them feels more important or merits exploration at this point in time. Or if the client is silent and very clearly thinking about something, not jumping in and pushing them into talking, but staying silent with them and allowing them to think. Yeah? Staying with what they have brought up and not just introducing multiple new lines of inquiry. What it would not look like is saying, if a coach says something like, okay, you mentioned 2 goals, let's start with the first one. Yeah? Or it seems to me that we first need to address this. Or I think we cannot solve this problem unless we first look at this. Yeah? All of those are examples of the coach directing the conversation, which is okay a little bit at the ACC level. But a definite pattern of that happening over and over again would count against you. Yeah? So I'm just going to pause here and see in presence and trust and intimacy. Any questions?
There was one point in your 4.3 where you gave a couple of examples, and especially the PCC level, it sounded very tangential in the sense like it could potentially take you off track, the goal that you're trying to stay focused on. So I was just wondering about that, like at what point you want them to talk, but you also want to kind of get a little directional on the goal. And suppose you've already discussed the goal and had the contract, and then suddenly you say, that sounds exhausting. And I'm wondering, how are you in the midst of all this? And then we get into some major being discussion, like, I don't know, like I feel scared.
So at a PCC level, that is what is expected of you. So the big difference between an ACC and a PCC level is that at ACC level, you're meeting the client at the level at which they are. Yeah? at a PCC level, while we do talk about exploring beliefs and all of that, that isn't required so much at an ACC level. At a PCC level, it is saying there is something underneath this that is causing the situation to happen, and it's important that we look at this client as a whole, and therefore the training that you get going down that path, etc., is very different.
Okay.
If you ask someone like Ken who's been through the PCC program, he would probably find it more difficult to say the first one.
Yeah.
And he would gravitate very naturally towards the second, because that
You
is
sort of can't move forward. Yeah, because it sort of comes in the way of being fully present there. Because I suddenly noticed this very glaring thing. So it becomes more sensing and not just listening then. It's also a lot more sensing.
Yeah.
But I think that I rely on if the client is, say, going at length to explain what their current situation is, and you're then able to guide them back to wondering also now to understand how is this connecting back to your original objective. So you can always get them back. It's always good to allow, they are leading this dance. So you can't, while I know we'd love for us to be in control of the conversation, but it's always good to give them that space.
Thanks.
There are a couple of questions, Sunita, on chat. I'll just share those with you. So there's one that's coming from...
Yeah, I'll look at it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Are there any timelines by which the contract needs to be established? No hard and fast stuff, Ramya, but I would say that you want enough space in the conversation to be able to demonstrate your skills. So maybe don't record an early conversation with a client or a client who's prone to over explanation. Because you'll find that when you're working with a client over a period of time, once you have demonstrated that you understand them, you'll notice the amount of explanation, etc., going down, and they understand the process of coaching, so it's easier for them to get to work. So maybe make some judicious choices about which recordings you take into conversation. I would say that if you're doing like a 60-minute recording, if let's say by 20 minutes, if you haven't established the contract, I would be very worried about where this conversation is going. But there is no hard and fast rule.
Thanks, Sunita.
Yeah. Amit, so they don't, you can't assess what is being demonstrated. So smiles and nods and facial expressions really cannot. So you will need to work on verbal expressions of empathy and support quite consciously for this. Also, I've noticed, I mean, I remember reading one evaluation a long while back that the coach was very accustomed to saying, So the client was talking for about 5 minutes, and the coach every like 5 or 10 seconds would be saying, And it sounds quite jarring on a recording. It could possibly be quite jarring for the client as well. And the feedback was that like it's good to be silent as a coach. Anuj's question. I would say separate the two. Yeah. So Anuj's question, sorry for those of you who haven't read it, is that the client asked me to suggest a couple of pointers. I asked the permission to shift into being a mentor and then went back to being a coach, indicating the same to them. Was that okay to do? I would say better not to mix the two, because you will find that clients are will much prefer a mentor role than a coach role, because it is easier for them to listen. It feels safer to learn from someone else's experience. And there will be some subtle shift in the dynamic between the two of you that is difficult to re-establish. So I would say, you say that I have contracted with you to be a coach and let me stay in that role. And once we're done with the sessions, like Like if I'm working with you 6 sessions, if after that you want to engage me as a mentor, we can have a different conversation about that. But if you go into it in a particular role, don't change what that role is. Anita, it's an audio recording. Yes, thank you. Ruchi?
Hi, Sunita.
Yeah.
Sunita, in the last slide, it was mentioned if the client comes up with 2 to 3 things, we don't say that I hear you saying 2 things, which one would you like to go first? I mean, we don't say that let's go with this first, but can we always put it in the form of question that I hear you saying this, I also hear you saying this. Which one would you like to address in our today's conversation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be very appropriate, and that is demonstrative of something of a previous behavior. Okay, I don't know which one, but it absolutely very okay. Not okay to take over control and say, let us talk about this.
The goal stage is 3.4, no? To identify,
Ha,
to sharpen
3.4.
further. Yeah.
In establishing an agreement, yes.
It was in the last slide, I guess.
Yeah, no, I was looking for where the thing that you said, it is an example of a correct behavior, which is 3.4, which is what Ken just shared.
Achha.
Agreement. All right.
Thank you.
Sunita, I had a question again on the 4.3 that we were discussing, and you said there's that subtle difference between the ACC and PCC.
Yeah.
And so my question was now, maybe some coaches are naturally a little more empathetic, and maybe while you are not trained, under the PCC to be, asking questions like that.
Yeah.
But what if you do ask in an ACC evaluation,
Okay.
not able to navigate, does it dink you?
No. So if you ask it and you're able to navigate, it's just no issues at all. So for example, what Ken was saying, right? That even if you go down a level deeper, a PCC coach would be able to bring it back on track. Say, I wonder how this relates to the original goal that you shared. So as long as you're able to do that, it is perfectly fine. Which is why the behavior, which is written as, which may focus on this. So it's not saying that you have to focus on the client's context and problem. It's saying that at an ACC level, you are not required to focus on this concern for the client as a being. Huh? If you do it and you do it well, it's perfectly okay. So you won't be dinged for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, moving on to listens actively. Summarizing and paraphrasing over here. So, I mean, all of you all know what summaries and paraphrases are, but just a couple of things to look at. Make sure it's succinct. Like a summary which is as long as what the client said is not a summary. Yeah? So, use it at key points. You don't have to summarize every single thing the client says. Make sure that you're following it up with a check-in for clarity, which is, did I get that right? Yeah. And if you paraphrased accurately, you will see the client nodding and moving deeper. And you will find that clients often stop over explaining once the client has done this, and that's what you're looking for over here. 6.2, okay, these are the slightly more complex ones, which is making observations that support the client in creating new associations. So you're doing this when you play back to the client some observation that you had of them, which is something you've heard them say, something about their body language, or even a recurrent pattern between one session and the other. Yeah. You don't have to, like, for example, if there is no recurrent pattern, if there's nothing about their body language, then these two you don't obviously need to do, but there will always be something that the client has said that they may not be aware of, that you can play back to them. So anything which is helping them deepen their awareness of themselves or the situation, or look at it from a different point of view. So there is an overlap between this and the behaviors under evokes awareness. But the reason it's sitting over here under active listening is that when you are playing back these observations, you are showing that you are really listening very closely to the client in words, in body language, across sessions. Yeah. So let me give you a couple of examples, which is a client says, every time I get close to launching a new idea, I feel exhausted, like I can't push through. And the coach says, I hear you say that this tends to show up when you're on the verge of putting something out into the world. What do you think that might be about? So if you notice, it's not like it's a huge leap from where the client was. It's a very gentle one, but that is enough. That the person may not have seen a link between, the fact that he or she may be just thinking on how do I get out of my exhaustion right now. You're drawing their attention to saying, see, there seems to be some link between these two events. What do you think that link could be? Okay. Or if a client says, I'm fine, it's just work pressure, nothing I can't handle. But you notice there's a tensing in the person's body. You say, as you said that I noticed your shoulders pulled in, your voice dropped. I'm wondering what's going on over there. Yeah? Make sure that there is no judgment. Yeah, as you said that I noticed you look visibly depressed is judgment. Observation is playing back what you are seeing in the person. I have to fix the situation. If I don't step in, everything will fall apart. The coach picking up on the have to and saying, I hear you emphasize you have to. That sounds like a lot of responsibility. What are you holding to be true over here? Or who else is responsible for this? Or, sorry. I had a fight with my sister about her not taking on responsibility for my parents. I'm not going to ask her ever again. And the coach who's worked with this person says, I remember the last time this happened, you had said you were not going to ask her. How did it feel to engage with her again? So drawing her attention to the fact that she has said this before and she seems to be pulled back to the conversation again and again. What is going on over there? Yeah? So you notice none of these at an ACC level need to be like drastic insights. It is just small, close shifts that you're noticing, yeah? And calling that out to the client. Is that okay? Okay. And then this one on 6.3 under active listening is co-creates a shared vision. And we've had like a lot of conversations within Navgati about what does this really mean? How is this different from contracting? So this is how I'm articulating it. There isn't that much guidance available from the ICF on this. So the two keywords on this are co-creates and vision. Yeah. So co-creates is implying that the coach is playing an active role in the process without taking over the conversation. So it's finding a balance between those two. So not doing it would be just passively following the client, just going and asking routine questions like, so what do you think? And I have seen recordings like that. Yeah. But the coach is just saying, okay, so what do you think you can do? And it just feels like there is no engagement. You're not partnering with the client. Yeah? But at the other end of the spectrum is taking over the thinking for the client and saying, I think you should work on this. So co-creating is not doing either of those extremes. Working with the client, bringing yourself into the process, but very much allowing them to contribute. Yeah? And the other piece is vision, which is I'm interpreting it as a powerfully motivating picture. That's what a vision is, right? The difference between a goal and a vision is, a vision is I want to live a healthy life for my child so that I can be there for her when she grows up. And a goal is I want to get to the gym next week. Yeah. So this behavior under active listening is that using your presence and paying attention to where the client is, you're helping them create a powerful vision. So agreement is what I just said about a goal, articulating where do you want to go. A shared vision is helping them connect with this future state in a way that is motivating for them, that has resonance, that has some emotion around it. Yeah. And the reason it's coming under active listening is because you are figuring out that emotional resonance by really, you're not manufacturing it for the client. Yeah? You're listening to what is there, whether it's said directly or not, what matters to them, the subtext, the emotions, the energy shifts. So you're listening to all of that and helping them create. Yeah? Let me give you one example of it, which is a client says, I really need to stop procrastinating and get my pitch deck done for a new idea. And the coach is listening attentively and saying, I notice when you talk about the desk, there's a certain sense of heaviness. Just as, I'm just picking it up. I could be wrong. What's at stake for you over here? And the coach says, the client says, I guess it's not about the pitch. It's whether I really believe in what I'm building or not. And the client says, so sounds like if you connected with your faith in the product that you're pitching, would the deck come easier? And the client says, yes, I want to get back to a space where I wake up excited and, then the pitch will happen easily. Okay? So you notice it is very different from contracting at the beginning of the conversation. This is operating at a deeper level. This is recognizing that coaching is a process of change, of a client moving from where they are to a future state. And that will happen when there is something that is powerful about it. Yeah? And through your listening, through your playing back, helping your clients get there. Another example is this. I want to figure out how to deal with this difficult team member. He's making my life hell. I don't like how I am with him. And the coach says, I hear you. And I wonder, so because he said, I don't like how I am with him, what kind of a leader would you like to be with this person or otherwise? And the client says, I want to be collaborative and open, not defensive. And the coach says, would it help you to talk about what it takes to being that kind of a leader? And the client says, yes. Yeah. Will you all give me 1 second, please? I'm so sorry. I will just be back.
So maybe in the meantime, I can ask you a question, Kenneth. Like this contrast between contracting versus visioning. Like when I saw that earlier example, like I could have taken it down the path of contracting, and started honing in on, okay, this is what you want to work on. But anyway, if you're back already, Sunita, you continue. And
you can ask the big boss. Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah.
Go on, Anita.
No, so that contracting and visioning, like if you go to the previous example, was it this one? The previous one.
Yeah.
I need to stop procrastinating and get my pitch deck done. Like if I was in contracting mode, I would be more into, okay, so today you want to focus on, how can you work on your pitch deck? Is that what you want to, sort of, I would go down that path.
Yeah.
So then, so
which is why, sorry, if I can just say, this is coming under active listening. Yeah. Right. So it could happen at the contracting part. Yeah. Which is, I'm curious about what would make this motivating for you. Yeah? But the reason it is coming under active listening is you are using your powers of listening and observation to bring something to light for that person. Yeah, which is deepening it. So it need not happen at the contracting stage, it could happen at any point in the conversation.
Right.
So you're right, Anita, in saying that if the person's, if they said at contracting, they said, I want to start procrastinating, get my pitch deck in place, your logical response would be possibly, okay, what can we talk about today that would be useful for you? Yeah. And let's say you arrive at a contract, the person says, I want to identify what is causing this procrastination to happen. Yeah. And then you say, I notice that when you talk about this, a sense of heaviness, what's at stake for you? That would be an evidence of this.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's at any point, and I think we was coming to that, at any point in the conversation, through your listening, helping the client get a broader, more motivating sense of the future that they want. That's what this behavior is all about. It is a slightly complex behavior. I want to look at how we bring it more clearly into the training as well. All right. Any other questions on the active listening?
I had one on the recording.
Yeah.
If you refer to a previous conversation, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Okay. Because you are supposed to be recording things with people who are your regular clients.
Okay.
So you can record a conversation with another coach, but that coach needs to be a regular client of yours. So the ICF wants to, we can't stop, but it wants to discourage people from not knowing each other from Adam and pairing up with each other just for the sake of a recording.
Okay.
But yeah, you can refer to a previous conversation. Okay. So evoking awareness. The first behavior is this, which is acknowledging their awareness learning movement towards a desired outcome. And it is very similar to 4.1, except that there it was about acknowledging insights in the moment. This one, because it's coming under evoking awareness, you're doing it in order to help a client sort of cement the shift that they have made. Yeah. So it typically tends to be about deeper moves or a move over a period of time or a trajectory rather than a one-off insight. Yeah? So for example, if 4.1, which was in under trust and intimacy, for clients that I don't delegate because deep down I feel it reflects badly on me if someone messes up. And the coach says, wow, that's a deep insight, that the fear of how you are going to be seen is preventing you from letting go of the reins. Yeah. So it is a momentary acknowledgement of that particular insight. But this behavior under evoking awareness would be sort of broader. It could be between one conversation and the other, or it could be at towards the end of a conversation, which is something like when we started this conversation, delegating felt like handing over control. Now I'm hearing you talk about how it's okay to let go and even allow your team to fail a little bit. And that sounds like a clear move towards the kind of leader that you said you want to be. Again, it is a fine line. So I would say don't worry about it too much. As long as you are consistently looking for opportunities to give positive strokes to your client for the insights they're having, for the shifts that they're making in their behavior, you will do okay on this front. Right? And then there's a big one in evokes awareness, which is help the client view the situation from new or different perspectives. So 6.2 again was very similar. There it was about you making observations, saying, I noticed this happened, or I noticed you said that. This could just be about the questions that you ask. Yeah. So for example, if a leader's taken on a new role 2 months ago and is anxious about whether she's doing okay, which of these questions would be evidence for this behavior? Ha ha ha, you thought you were going to be passively listening. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So which of these questions would help a client view the situation from a new perspective?
Is it the friend one? If you were talking to a friend in the situation?
Yeah, the second one.
Second
one, yes. What else? Two more.
Yeah, possibly the third and the fifth one as well.
Yeah. What according to you is a reasonable
spot on? Yeah. Because the second one is if you're inviting the person to look at it with kindness, the kind of kindness you express towards others, can you express that towards yourself, which is what the question will come down to. Yeah? The third question is about reality testing. So she is stressing, but what is the actual reality? What is the manager actually thinking? Yeah? And she's putting a lot of pressure. It's just been 2 months. She's putting a lot of pressure. So this is inviting her to look at what is reasonable in this. Yeah. So you notice again, they don't have to be very complex questions. Any questions you're coming with intentionality, helping the client see that, you're looking at it from this point of view, there are 10 other points of view from which you can look at it. Any evidence of that would be evidence over here. Yeah. And like all the stuff that you've done on drivers and other self-limiting beliefs in the program, if you bring any of that into the conversation, that would be evidence for this behavior. 7.3 is, I think if you've done everything else till now, this would automatically get covered. It's asking questions about their thinking, their feeling, their behavior. The main thing to keep in mind over here is that all of these, if you notice, are questions about the person, not about the problem. Yeah. So the difference between If someone's working through a dysfunctional relationship with their manager, what would not count as evidence for this behavior is how long have you worked with this person? Do other people have the same issue? How are your project deliverables going? Yeah? So these are all problem-focused questions. While they might be useful in the context of the conversation, this particular behavior, it is, if you notice the way it's written, it's all about what is happening internally for the client or how are they acting. Yeah. So questions like, how do you feel going into a meeting with this manager? What do you think is contributing to this situation? Yeah. How do you react when your manager talks angrily to you? All of these are person-focused questions, and these would be okay. And shall I just finish this and then we'll come back and see what questions you'll have? Okay. The last one facilitates client growth, which is the closure part. Yeah? Which is asking questions to support the client and shifting from awareness to action. And so typically towards the end of this conversation, you would say something like, shall we take stock? What has changed for you? The questions that you ask after that, which is what would you like to do with this insight? Or now that you know this, how would you like to be different? Those are questions that support our evidence for this behavior. Yeah? Partner with the client to confirm action plans is going a step deeper and helping them create clear, measurable plans. What meetings are coming up? How will you measure yourself? What could come in the way of your doing this? How will you celebrate when this happens? Again, no formula over here. Yeah? It has to be specific enough for the client. And finally, the last behavior, support the client to close the session, which is all through the conversation. If you have been, you are in charge, then we don't end the conversation by saying, okay, fine, bye, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. So you close it with some gentleness, which is this a good place? Is there something, that we haven't finished that you want to bring in next time? How are you feeling as we close out on this? So it's ending the way you began, by saying you are in charge and you can control where we go with this. Yeah. So just to sum up, and I'll share the deck with all of you and the recording later. So these are the behaviors to demonstrate. There's plenty of overlap between the two, but I'm hoping that you understood what some of the nuances are. And again, do not worry that you have to demonstrate all the behaviors at the highest level. Yeah. If you demonstrate, how do I tell you without giving away the algorithm? If you demonstrate about 60% of these at a moderate level, you will be fine. Yeah, 60 to 70%. Yes, Ken.
If my understanding is right, sometimes a single observation or a single question can be evidence for multiple behavior markers.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't necessarily have to have separate things. So for example, this behavior, sharing what you're picking up, that can help the client. So if you say, I notice you tightened up as you said that, and I'm wondering what could be a different way of seeing the situation that let you feel more relaxed, would be evidence for this, would also be evidence for this under evoking questions. Yeah. So you do not need to have 100 different questions and 100 different statements. And I'll just do this so that whoever needs to leave can leave. I'm so sorry this went over time. Look at your notes from the program that you went through and look at the ICF website. The ICF new website is very nicely laid out and much clearer to understand. So a lot of resources available over there. Take a look at all the resources on the Navgati website. There's the Quiet Coach blog, there's the ACC mock exam. Use your mentor coaching well to understand what you want to strengthen. And trust yourself. Take a transcript, review it against these standards. And and then go ahead and ping me if you need to know more.